Hi, in this video we will be continuing the discussion on Variance Chapter 2 Budget Constraint. In the previous video we have covered a lot of ground on what exactly is budget set, how we construct a budget line, and what are the changes on the budget line with respect to prices and income. So in this lecture or video you will see the concept of Numeraire, taxes and budget line impacts, which will conclude the chapter 2 of budget constraint. Now, when I say taxes, I definitely do not mean only taxes. The opposite of taxes is subsidy. So that's included inside taxes. And it also includes something known as rationing, because even that is a way of the government to control your supply of items. And essentially taxes or subsidy is also a way to control the supply of your items and in an effect change your budget set and line. So after this we will go to the budget line impacts. As the name suggests, we will think about taxes, subsidies, rationing and see how it impacts the budget set and ultimately the budget line. So let's start the idea of Numeraire. What exactly is Numeraire? Now, when we talk about Numeraire, you can see the textbook definition of Numeraire right on your screen. Now, if you can pause the video and have just go through the lines, you will understand that Numeraire is really a mathematical construct, and it's just a way by the mathematicians to kind of reduce the number of things they have to take into account. So giving you an example, let us say you have 3 as the price of a good, so 3 times x1, and let's say you have price of a good maybe 7 times x2. This is equal to your income. Now let us say your income is 100 rupees. Now if I tell you that what about if I divide the equation whole throughout by 3, will the equation change? No, equation would not change. So let me just change the equation to x1 plus 7 upon 3 x2 is equal to 100 upon 3. So essentially I have the same equation. Now what I have done is I can interpret this equation as the price of good 1 is 1, price of good 2 is 7 upon 3 and the income is 100 upon 3. So you must have understood that what we have done. Over here we are measuring the prices relative to the price of good 1. If you have read any bit of physics in your 11-12, you might relate to this idea with relative acceleration or relative position or relative velocity. Or even if you have not read physics, let's just think through it. Let's say I give you $5, right? So obviously if you have to convert it to Indian rupees, you will have to do some kind of a multiplication, right? So what you are doing over here is a kind of changing your relative calculation. So that is the same thing which we are doing. So suppose let us say I change my currency, and in some way what happened was that the price of good 1 changed from 3 to 1 in that currency. So I'll have the same effect, right? So you get the idea why we are talking about Numeraire, because that makes logical sense and it gives a mathematical ease for our calculations as well. So that's the idea of Numeraire. Let's move on to the next thing, which is taxes. Over here we have essentially 5 types of concepts to discuss, but let's try to understand one by one and let's just take 3 at a time. Now the first 3 which we are going to discuss is quantity tax, right? I'm writing this for quantity. Then we will have something known as value tax. Now value tax is also known as ad valorem tax. And we will also talk something about lump sum tax. Now if we have to understand what is a quantity tax, it's just on a per unit basis. Let us say I tell you the tax on the amount of cola you are going to drink is 5 rupees per bottle, or rather $5 per bottle or per can. So if you are drinking 5 cans I'll have to multiply that per unit tax into the number of cans or bottles which you're using, right? So let's say I just give you that the price of an item is 5 per unit. So if I tell you that the quantity tax is given as T, in that case you will say my new price will be 5 plus T per unit. Now this was quantity tax. What about value tax? Value tax or ad valorem tax is a kind of a percentage tax. So I will write over here that my value tax is essentially some kind of a delta percentage, right? That will make more sense. So if it's a delta percentage, so if I say that my price was 5 per unit, in this particular case I will write 5 into 1 plus delta upon 100. Now I have denoted this with delta percentage. Now I can also denote it as a fraction. Let's say I just denote it using maybe let's say alpha. Now this alpha is not percentage but a fraction. So in that case I will just write 5 into 1 plus alpha. Now what is the difference between delta and alpha? Now your alpha could be 0.3, 0.4 and so on. Now 0.3 means 30% tax. So I'll write 30 by 100. Get the same thing. So it's just a different way of representation of the percentage, nothing else. Now what about lump sum tax? Now lump sum tax means that I'm not really taxing your price of the good, but I'm taxing the income. So essentially it is the right hand side of the budget set. So what you can say over here is that let's say my budget line is E1x1 plus P2x2 is equal to M. Over here this is your budget line. So when I give you a lump sum tax, I change your budget line, not budget set. I might have used budget set in my previous statement, but just keep in mind that when I give you a lump sum tax, I change your budget line. Now in place of M, what I will have is a reduction in M because I'm giving you a kind of a tax. So M will change to, let's say my tax is, lump sum tax is capital T. So M will change from M to M minus T. Rest of the things will remain the same. Now let's talk about the budget line impacts of these three things. Now, if I'm changing the price, I already know what will happen to my budget line, because budget line can essentially move back like this, like rotate like this. Now why it rotates? Let's say price of a good, let's say in the x-axis reduces. So obviously I'll buy more of that, right? So this will change like this, flat, because I have to get more, right? So x side it will shift. Now, if I increase the price of good 1, now what will happen? I can buy less of this, so it will change like this. So just think about this in this way, that which of the price is fixed. So fix that point, this point to this point, and understand what's happening. So you'll get the idea that what is going to happen with these two cases. Now what about this? This is essentially a parallel shifting of your budget, right? Because budget line, because your income is changing, your slope is not going to change, because slope is only governed by the coefficients of your x1 and x2. So I hope this was clear to you. Now we will move on to the next thing, which is the opposite of tax, subsidy. What will happen if I have a subsidy? Now it's pretty intuitive. Subsidy is the opposite of tax. It's kind of a benefit by the government to you. So if I just take all of the same and just say subsidy, right? So what will happen is, in place of T, I will write a small s. So this will become your minus s. So 5 minus s. Let's just take these numbers as the same for subsidy as well. So for subsidy, I'll have a minus here and a minus here, right? And what about this? For subsidy, let's say I denote it by capital S, and subsidy is giving you, so this thing will become M plus S. Now I hope this is pretty intuitive to you about the idea of taxes and subsidy, and how these three kinds of taxes and subsidies essentially are ways of the government to control your supply of goods, or rather your demand. I mean, whatever way you might interpret it, but as of now, just think about it that government is kind of manipulating your uh, purchase decisions, right? So let's just erase this and we will head on to the idea of rationing, and we will then understand that what exactly is rationing. When the government starts rationing, it means that you are not allowed to buy certain amount of good after a point of time. Now when I say after a point of time, what I mean is, let's say this is your good 1 and this is your good 2, and I have given a kind of constraint on the purchase of good 1 because the government might be giving you some kind of a benefit on the price of good 1, so it will restrict your purchase decision on good 1. So what it will say is that you can buy at most of, let's say, some x ration amount, right? So what will happen in this case is that ideally if there was no rationing, I would have gone till this point and this would have been my line. But what will happen now is that I cannot buy anything in this part after XR or X ration. So what I will do is my budget set will restricted to this part. So this shaded area will be my new budget set and this will be my budget line, right? This will be my budget line, this and this. So now you will understand that what I have done is I have just given a cap on the purchase of the rationed good. I haven't changed the slope till the rationing amount. So this is one other way in which your purchase decision can be altered by the government. Now obviously the mathematical insight of this would not be that difficult to understand if you have a particular problem in hand. Now the other topic which I want to discuss is there's an example of rationing by the US government, the food stamp program. Now the food stamp program essentially is not really this kind of a rationing which you're seeing. It's slightly modified rationing with subsidy built onto it. So let's just try to understand what exactly is a food stamp program, because it has rationing as well as a kind of subsidy given to you. Now to understand the essence of food stamp program, I will not be taking the numbers and giving you the interpretation from the Varian textbook. I will leave that as an exercise for you, or else you'll never understand anything. What I will do is tell you the essence. So what is happening over here? Let's think about it. The government says that you can buy up till some point, let's say some X food stamp goods. This is for X1 and this is for X2. Now X2 will be denoting all the other goods, right? So government says that, let's say you are not under the food rationing program, so you will have to be on this line. Now government comes up and tells that I'm giving you an offer. Let us say you have certain amount of an income, or you are identified as a focus group or some kind of an unprivileged house. So you will be given an offer. That offer is you will be asked to buy a food stamp. Now that food stamp will what do is it will change your budget line like this till some point of time, and again it will revert the same parallel slope which you have. So this is parallel to each other, but till this point, the point of XFS, I just change the budget line. Now what I have done is government has given you some kind of a food stamp at some price. Now the price of food stamp is lesser than the price of the equivalent goods in the X1 axis. So it is changing your slope till XFS. It's like this, that rather than giving you something on 20 rupees per unit, the government says give me 5 rupees and I will give you 20 rupees worth of items. So definitely I will have a flatter slope because I'll buy more for the same amount of the other goods, because the other goods does not have that kind of a food stamp program. Now, this is one way that the government will ask you to buy food stamps. So it will change your slope, it will become flatter. Now, what if the government says do not really buy any food stamp? We were having a more sophisticated way to identify households. So we will only give food stamp to the really needy ones, and we will not ask any money from them. So what will happen then? So in that case, this will not be the complete picture. Now we will have a flat line till this point, and then again a parallel line. Now as you can see that what I have done is I have just helped the poor community with XFS amounts of good one without asking any money from them, but I'm not giving them a benefit on other goods, so they cannot buy more of the other goods. They have to be restricted to this amount of goods. So you can see that as the food stamps cannot be sold on free market, so I'm definitely not offering any kind of choice on the other goods, but I'm giving you an option to buy good one at a lesser price or at an advantageous rate up till the XFS or the food stamp amount. So you can see this is like a rationing and subsidy built on top of each other. So this is all about the food stamp program, and if you want to understand it through the numbers, you have that example in the Varian textbook. Go through it, and if you face any difficulty, do comment in the comment box, and I might make a video on that separately, right? So this was the food stamp program. Let's move on to the budget line impacts, right? And let's try to build some kind of background for the next chapter. So let's erase this and move on to that. Now let us say this is your budget line, good one, good two, and this shaded thing over here then becomes your budget set. Now what is the meaning of budget set? This set essentially is the set of all the bundles of goods, the combination of x1 and x2 which you can buy because it's affordable to you. Now let us say that I increase the price of good 1 and let me just keep the price of good to the same. So what will happen in that case? In that case, this will be my new curve or the budget line. So my budget set will reduce, right? So if the budget set reduces, so definitely what will happen is I will be not well off as much as I was before because I am not able to afford a lot of the consumption items which I was able to afford. What if I reduce the price of a good? So if I reduce the price of a good, it will be something like this. So whenever this happens, I am able to afford more choices or rather more bundles. So at least I'm as well off as I was before. So this reduction will increase, or rather I would say it would never decrease. It will make either my welfare to be the same or it will increase my welfare by a certain amount, and if I increase the price it will reduce my welfare or make the welfare same. So this is akin to saying that it increases my utility or makes it same, so it's non-decreasing, and this movement essentially means that it is less than equal to movement. So this is the idea of budget line impacts based on prices. What if I change the budget line entirely? What I say is, let me just do a parallel shifting. So if I do a parallel shifting, so definitely I am able to afford more bundles. So I am definitely at least as well off as I was before. So even this will be greater than equal to case. So this is a kind of a background to the next chapter, that what really I choose, because till now we have not really understood that which bundle will I choose or how would my utility change based on the bundle which I choose. So let's move on to the end of the chapter questions. Now, if I look at the end of the chapter questions, the first question says that originally the consumer faces a budget line, then you double the price of good one, the price of good 2 becomes 8 times, income becomes 4 times. Write down the equation of your budget line in terms of original prices and income. New budget line in terms of original prices and income. So definitely it's a very simple question. Just make P1 to 2P1, make P2 to 8P2 and your M to 4M, and that will be it. Now the next two questions are also very similar to the first one. If I go to the first, what is the definition of numeraire good? I have already discussed in this video. 5 says the government puts a tax of 15 cents a gallon on gasoline and decides to put a subsidy on gasoline at a rate of 7 cents. So it means I'm giving 15 and taking 7. So how much I'm giving? I'm giving 15 minus 7. It's simple. Sixth question is also very similar to fifth, right? So we'll not talk about this. 7. If the income of the consumer increases, so income increases, parallel shifting, and one of the prices decreases. So in other words, what I can say is that there's a parallel shifting of the budget line, which makes you better off or at least as well off, and then you have an increase in the amount of a good which you can buy, that also makes you at least as well off or better off. So net both of them are helping you in your welfare. So definitely you will be better off. Now if you have not understood the solution, read through the question, watch the video again and put in the comments what you are not able to understand, and maybe we could make a new video out of it, right? So that's it. Bye.